Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, and today we have a couple guest co-hosts with us from Follow the Light Music Review, Mr. John DeLaurentis. Welcome back, John.
Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And from Tim Talks Christian Rock and Creative Christians Podcast, Mr. Tim Ristow. Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here again.
You bet. Thank you guys for blessing me with great fellowship. And friends, without further ado, our guest artist today, he's a singer-songwriter, producer, engineer, multi-instrumentalist in multiple bands, having released multiple albums with his early 80s and 90s progressive rock band Damascus, as well as some great Americana music since 2012 with his band Shadowfields. And on July 11th, 2025, he's released his spectacular full-length progressive rock album under his Undoubting Thomas moniker, In the Process of. Friends, today we're welcoming back our friend, Thomas McKeown. Welcome back, Thomas. It's an honor to have you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thomas, a few things that I'd like to make mention before we do a deep dive into these deep waters here. One of the things that I greatly appreciate about this album is that, prog can oftentimes meander sometimes. I call it the prog pitfall. This album doesn't do that. I'm never bored. One example of some meandering and from a great band is the band Yes and their Tales of Topographic Oceans. There's a little bit of meandering going on. This album doesn't do that. It puts it all together. I'm never bored here. This has different textures, various roads and avenues in different time zones, all within the framework of a song. Thomas, what I'd like to ask you then, as a prog artist, how do you go about crafting a song?
Well, I have always been about the song and the importance of the song. Um, it seemed to be a little bit self-indulgent just to have endless noodling, and a lot of groups do endless noodling. But I always felt that if there's a solo or if there's any fill or if there's anything in the song, it has to serve the song. The song has to be taking you somewhere. And but that's just me, and I prefer not to have just mindless noodling to show if that I could play fast. I don't find that to be interesting myself. So I do come from a more of a melodic and harmonic structure. I love classical music, basically Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff being my favorites. And there's always melody and harmony, and it's always taking you somewhere. And if there's a fast run of a solo, there's a purpose for it. It's to bridge two gaps, and so I try to look at it that way as well.
Sure, sure. And something I'm going to make sometimes in prog, it's like there's the mandatory time change in music, and it's kind of part and parcel with prog. And what I've wondered yourself as a songwriter, and again, this is wonderfully constructed. I absolutely
Thank
love
you.
this album, and we'll dive deeply into these waters here in a little bit. But yourself as a prog rock artist, regarding the light and shade that is oft part and parcel with prog, as well as time signature changes. Um, Sometimes albums are like soundtracks to movies that have not been scripted. What I'm trying to say is oftentimes they're kind of like a conceptual piece. And so just as you have different scene changes in a movie, um, sometimes I wonder if the concepts of albums can help bring about the light and shade or the time signature changes as different scenes in a movie, but in an audible expression. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with that. I think that progressive music can be about as close to a cinematic score as you could possibly get. It's trying to take you through different moods. Honestly, as far as the time changes, I don't really pay much attention to it. I just write what I'm feeling.
Mhm.
And, for better or for worse, sometimes I'm feeling something in 15. And there was a cases on the album where Pat, the drummer that played on it, he would come in and he'd say, I have no idea what you just did there. I don't even know where one is anymore. And so we'd have to work out those kind of details. But it all came just very naturally. There was no thought of, I need to make this tricky so that, people who love Genesis and their odd time signatures, so they would love this too. I didn't think about that at all. It just, things just felt right. And I do agree though that I could hear a lot of those ideas in a film score. And I try to write it in that way because some of the themes that I was writing about are dark themes, and I wanted to portray that in the music and take you on this journey because it's a pretty heavy album actually.
And we will dive deeply into that here in a little bit. Thomas, I want to make mention, I certainly enjoyed Damascus, and thank you, John DeLaurentis, for introducing me to the music of Damascus.
Mhm.
Thomas, while I thoroughly enjoyed this, and this is a great release and crafted since like 1983, I believe, all the way up to 1990, I do want to say, and with no disparagement meant toward Damascus, but as it should be, because we're talking 42 years later since the initial album that comprises this anthology. So 42 years later, it's evident that your songcraft has sharpened and it's strengthened throughout the years. And whether via instrumentation or lyrical message, I'd like to ask you, Thomas, what do you attribute to the healthy development of your songcraft?
I think age that had a big part of it. Just being part of it for so many years and writing so many songs, you inevitably have to get better. At least I hope so. Um, Also, I did work for 20 years as a music director at a church. And so that made me um, focus a bit more on song content and structure. I tried to do things that were a little more interesting than possibly it would be typical of. Um, but also, I'd say even a bigger part was my working with Heather Humphrey over the last 18 years with Shadowfields. We've written hundreds of songs and we wrote for publishers. And she is huge into melody and huge into song structure. And she doesn't like it when it gets too crazy. And so I started really honing in and trying to say the most in the least amount of time and make it concise, but make it interesting as well. And so I took some of that into the writing of this album. So it was just a lot of life experiences and a lot of songs in between, because we're talking between the last Damascus album and when In the Process of came out, there's a few hundred songs between there.
As a songwriter, what goal or goals do you hope to accomplish with your works for yourself?
For myself, well, my hope is um, that what I've written actually has an impact on somebody, that somebody they'll get it, that maybe they have the same feelings and this might help them through it. Not not necessarily giving them the one, two, three answers, but just to know that you're not alone, that life is sometimes a struggle. And I wanted to make sure that, other people knew that's where I was at, for me, writing those was cathartic in some ways. Um, Being able to verbalize the things that go through my mind late at night, uh, that was that was healing in some ways to me, I guess. Um, I have chronic back problems, and so I sleep very little. So in the middle of the night, when you're just thinking about everything and anything, and you start thinking about the big things in life and eternity, um, those all start spilling out into song ideas. And so I just wanted to write where I was at, and that's what this album is really about. It's a very personal album. It wasn't written to try to impress anybody. It was just written because this is where I'm at, this is what I'm feeling, and these are the melodies that are doing something for me at this point in time.
Thomas, I think you've touched on it. Now, this question that I asked was a three-parter. You made mention a little bit. What do you hope to, with your songcraft, that you wish to impart to others through it?
That you're not alone, that we all, whether Christian or not, we all go through many of the same struggles and many of the same doubts, the fears, suffering losses. We're all going through the same common human experiences. And I just want people to understand that you're not alone in this. You know, that I really dislike when I'm not saying this is the general, but often there'll be some Christian artists can paint a rosy picture of, just do this and life is just perfect. And maybe for them, that's the way it worked. Maybe for them, life has always been happy and they're just, constantly smiling. That hasn't been my story. And I wanted other people to realize that, that might not be their story as well. And they're not alone in that. And and somehow, maybe through some of these lyrics and some of the musical passages, it might touch on their life and help bring, I don't know, a little bit of healing, just to even know that they're not alone.
Gotcha. And more on that rosiness in a bit. We'll delve into that. Last part of this question then, Thomas. As a songwriter, what goal or goals do you hope to accomplish with your works for the giver of the gift of music?
Oh, I always hope that everything I do is God honoring, and I am fully aware that any skills, any gifts that I have, they didn't come from me. And I'm not saying I'm a genius by any means, but the little bit of a gift that I have, it was given to me by the Creator for a purpose. And I want to reflect back the truth that has been shown to me in what I do. I hope that makes sense.
Sure. So, Thomas, let's talk about then the vessel that you are. A little bit about this too. Crisp and crunchy, crisp and punchy production. Nice warm guitar tones. I'm loving what I'm hearing. The vessel that you are here. Lead and backing vocals, guitar, bass, piano, organ, synth, percussion, and also all songs written, arranged, engineered, recorded, and mixed by you, Thomas. My question is, good sir, how many hours do you have in your day? Wow.
That's a fair question. Um, uh, Honestly, I feel in some ways, at least on this album, um, it was inspired in many ways because it came together way too fast. From when I was asked to create this album, which was October, until it was all finished being written, and actually all but one song was already mixed by March. It came together incredibly fast. I also don't sleep, so a lot of lyrical ideas do come in the middle of the night, and uh, I guess, yeah, everybody has priorities. And this was a huge priority, and I wanted to get it done, and I wanted to make this statement. But I felt completely blessed because it did happen so fast, very fast. Sat down, music just spilled out of me, and I didn't even have any lyrics at first. And I remember talking with Heather Humphrey from Shadowfields, and I said, I'm doing this. She was fully aware of it, fully supportive. And I said, I'm going to be writing lyrics for this, and I'm going to run them by you. And if they're dopey in any way, or if they sound like Christianese, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If they sound overtly religious in some way, I don't want to use them. I want something to be a common human experience. That's what I want to portray in these lyrics, and I want them to be fresh. I don't want to say anything trite or cliched line or anything like that. And when I needed the lyrics, again, usually late at night, they just came to me. I just have a pencil and paper, have a microphone set up in the studio, and I'd be playing it back, and I'm like, there they are. I didn't have to work hard. I feel kind of guilty in some ways because it turned out fairly well, and it was probably one of the easiest albums I ever had to write.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. My next question was actually going to be if this seemed like a grueling, laborious process, or did time seem to fly by? And you've answered that. And I noticed something, and again, Thomas, we're gonna really deep dive into some stuff here in just a little bit. And by the way, forgive me, friends. Thomas instructed me to call him Tom, and I can't break an old habit here. So please,
That's fine. I
please
can be
forgive me.
Thomas.
I apologize.
Has anyone seen? Could anywhere be? Can anyone find the world that was mine? Has anyone seen?
I noticed in here, it was talking about Greenhouse Studio and Greenhouse Productions. If I'm not mistaken, Tom, that is your imprint. And could you just tell us how long Greenhouse, whether productions or your studio, how long has that been established, and what type of services do you offer for recording artists?
That's been an on and off thing. I did start recording people even around the early 2000 mark. Heather and I got together, and it's been basically our home studio that we work out of. But a few years ago, Heather decided to do this open mic at a local brewery, and so she wanted to build community within the local community of artists, and she really wanted to nurture people's original compositions. And so what we did when we were doing that open mic, we started opening up studio time to people that could never afford to go into another studio. And in order to build this community, which is a very tight-knit community, we brought them in, helped them produce, in some cases, albums, other cases, a series of songs. And there was never any charge for it. It was just, if you want to donate anything, it's going to go back into more gear because I'm kind of a junkie. And but otherwise, it was just about building community because often the musical community can become competitive where people are like, I got to get my song heard and I got to get my song heard. But our thought was just that everybody needs to get their song heard. And we just wanted to help encourage people and get their song out there and help them release it so the greater world could actually hear it.
Sure, sure. So, speaking of hearing songs, um, when I heard that this was up for pre-order, and as a fan, having become of Damascus, I'm like, you bet, I'll go check it out. And when I first heard Love and Life, and friends, go to YouTube and search Undoubting Thomas, type in Love and Life, and there's a what should I call that, John? A music stream or music
Yeah, you're streaming it. Yeah, I guess.
yeah, music
YouTube.
stream on YouTube for Love and Life. But when I first heard that, I'm like, I immediately hit that pre-order button because I'm like, this sounds wonderful. It sounds fantastic. And then, Tom, speaking about Love and Life in general, what prompted you to entitle this album In the Process of?
Many people, we went through it before, but many people have just a very positive and happy life. My childhood and upbringing, nothing was wrong. Don't get me wrong I'm coming out of like some horrible poverty or anything like that. That was not the case at all. But I've always suffered with depression. I've had a lot of series of depression, and I have seasons in a valley. And when I was thinking about the album, which, I wanted to, I would have rather said in the process of Undoubting Thomas, because that's the way it really should be said. It's not Undoubting Thomas in the process of, it's in the process of Undoubting Thomas. It's kind of an action. I'm in the process of going from doubt to undoubting. Just as, Thomas, when he doubted that Jesus was raised from the dead, but he was given proof. And I think through our lives that, I don't think God's afraid of our hard questions. And he rewards those who seek him and ask those tough questions and say, show this to me, explain it to me. I don't understand why things happened the way they happened. Can you show me why? And through series of events, life experiences, maybe we come to a greater place of faith in our life. And in this case, this album was kind of those struggles and a lot of the things that I'd thought about for years, just all kind of spilling out. And that's why I called it In the Process of, because I'm in the process of, I'm not all I should be yet. I haven't arrived, but I'm in the process of becoming better. I'm becoming to believing more and more deeply and to doubting less, even when things are going horribly wrong. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna step in here quick. So Tom, that kind of theme of the album, is that something that you went in with, or as you were writing the songs, did that kind of coalesce out of the collection of songs and lyrics? And how did that develop for you?
It started right away. Even before I was approached about the album, I had a couple of the song ideas, just a little part to the intro to The Mirror and the intro to Another World. Both of those have been running through my head for years. I have tons of voice notes of me noodling around on a piano with those, but they always had this thing in my brain that if I ever got a chance to write a solo album, this is what it was going to be about. It was always going to be about that, because I couldn't write something that wasn't true in my own life. I needed to write, this is where I'm at. It's not a great place, but I'm working through it. And I think that the album reflects that.
Yeah. And
You
are
know,
you always working to write through the lens of your faith? Is that something that you're consciously aware of, or is that kind of a natural springboard for you?
I think you have to just write from who you are. And back in 81, I became a Christian. And so it can't help but to affect every area of my life.
Yeah.
But given that, I know that in a lot of circles, this will be known as a Christian prog album. I don't
Right.
view it as a Christian prog album. I view it as a prog album written by a Christian.
Yeah.
And yes, what do you call that? John Anderson had his own ideas about a whole lot of things. You know, are they called, you know, fairy dust prog? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But it does affect every part of my life. And
Yeah.
So just with that Christian worldview, it's going to
Mhm.
come through in the music and the lyrics.
Yeah. Amen.
Something you made mention of, Tom, I talking about struggling with depression and uh, I've gone through some valleys too, some very deep valleys, in my life. In former years, I've often found that when I'm on the mountaintop, sometimes I tend to forget about God. Not that I'm trying to forget about God, it's just that everything's hunky dory and I'm breezing by. Oftentimes it's those valleys that I am clinging on to the leg of Christ, realizing that He is the only solid rock, that there is through the gales of life, the troubles of life. And that's when I'm closest to God, and I'm reminded of how much I need Him. And in a crazy way, that's a blessing. The trials and tribulations, and just knowing that thigh of Christ that I'm clinging on to that has King of Kings and Lord of Lords written on it, man, I can relate, is all that I'm trying to say. And I applaud what you're saying in this album. And we're going to dive in deeper into that. And I hope what I've said kind of makes sense.
Absolutely.
Am I the master of every thought?
Let's talk about then your song Any Wonder and the video that you starred in for that. You got acting skills, brother. Thomas, what prompted you to choose Any Wonder for the video for the album?
Well, I know that Bill at Rocks decided that they would release Love and Life as the first single, just because it's a really short song. It's only 3 minutes long, so it's half the length of pretty much any other song on the album. Um, but when I was thinking about the second song, I was trying to think of, all right, what song has has pretty much a single theme that weaves throughout, that isn't going to get too crazy. Because if I did something on, like with the song Another World, it's 14 minutes long. That would have been a really hard video to make. And so I started thinking about which songs would I be able to do something with. And I thought Any Wonder, which was the very last song written for the album, I thought that um, I really, at that point, I really resonated with where the lyrics were going. And I thought I could make something out of this. And so I asked some people, like, what do you think should be the next single? And so many people had different answers. But in the end, it's whatever I'm going to be able to film and whatever I'm going to be able to edit, for dozens of hours. And what did I feel I could do? And I thought that Any Wonder would be a good pick. And so I just set out and did it.
Friends, go to YouTube and type in Undoubting Thomas and type in Any Wonder and check the video out, and you can see Thomas's acting debut. Now he does a great job. It's a great video.
Can I
Thomas,
tell you something? There's
yeah.
a kind of a funny thing. Um, there's in that video, there's a couple shots of Pat Culligan, the drummer, playing drums. Uh, those were actually, that was the part. That was when he recorded the part, because I knew I was going to ever get him back in to sit around and record a video for a day so I could have something to use. And I didn't know if I was ever going to use the song, but I just set up a couple cameras in the studio, and I just let them run for 3 hours while we recorded the song. And then it was the fact that I had to go back to do the video and find each one of those parts that we used and piece it all together. So, but that was the part. So when you're watching them play, that was when it went down. So I thought that was kind of cool.
And it was cool. Tom, let's talk about, you mentioned to me, we were connecting and preparing for this forthcoming interview, and let's talk about the 18-part video on the making of in the process of. What does that entail?
Well, I thought it would be kind of fun as a little bit of a backstory for people. I'm used to doing um, tour diaries. When Shadowfields is on tour, we'll do little short tour diaries, like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, or whatever. And so I thought, well, it's October. I'm starting a new album. Why not just every day or every few days have just a little bit of a video? I'll just, do a selfie thing and just talking to the camera and say, here's what I worked on today. And so when people look back on it after they've heard the whole thing, then they can watch these videos and go, so that's when he worked on that. And maybe some people will really find that interesting. I had fun with it. And so I just started stringing them together, and it ended up being an 18-part thing. They're all short. They're all between 3 and 5 minutes long maximum. But these are the sessions. And here's Pat, and we were talking about all kinds of goofy things. Or here's Heather or Gary, the violin player. And it just follows through the making of it and then the final thoughts on it. And so we'll start putting those out within, I don't know, a few weeks or so.
Okay. And where can your friends and fans go to check that out at?
On my YouTube page. And I'll have links to it on Instagram and also in Facebook as well.
So, Tim, I see you down there. I want to make mention really quick, friends, on YouTube. It's at Undoubting Thomas 1961. That's the Undoubting Thomas channel on YouTube. You can also go to undoubtingthomas.com. You can also go to damascus.band to check out Damascus and the anthology. And then there's shadowfields.com, which Tom has been making mention of, his writing partner in Shadowfields, Heather Humphrey. So I will post the links across the screen, and all links will be in the description below. Tim, what you got?
Oh yeah. So, I love creatives and the creative process. So Tom, especially since your album is in the process of, do you have any kind of, I don't know, unique routines in your creative process or things that you rely on when you approach, whether it's the music or the lyrics or, even you doing these video diaries? Is there something about your process that you rely on, certain routines, certain processes that, are integral to you as a creative?
I don't know that I could say I have any routine. I think the thing is, I'm better off if I don't have a routine.
Mhm.
I'm better off if I have a large open window where somebody says, all right, you have 36 hours. I'll get home from work on a Friday night. I know I don't have to be anywhere until Monday morning. And I would just basically lock myself away here in the studio and let things go. Because the more I would stress about something or like, I've got to come up with this, I got to come up with this, it would stifle me. I can't work like that. But as soon as I let everything go and say to myself, it doesn't have to be done today, all of a sudden everything starts flowing, and I'll come up with idea after idea. And so there's no super structure or no rituals that I go through or anything like that. I don't stand on my head for 10 minutes and chant something, but
It's having that freedom of time, right? Just the mental freedom
exactly,
to know I can create. Yeah.
exactly. The freedom to know that I'm not going to be bothered by anybody for any reason. And I could just dive deep into whatever I'm thinking. And whenever I want to play, I could just jump into that without getting pulled back out of it in an hour or something.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Great process.
Silence fed the enemy. He drew strength from the things I did not say. My Lord, my God, teach me to pray. In this prison, I am captive.
Tom, Tim has Creative Christians podcast, and Tim and I have been in some deep discussion before regarding, and you made mention of this earlier. I think Christian, for lack of a better term, because I'm like you, Tom, I don't really subscribe or believe in Christian rock. I think there's rock music, and some people are Zen Buddhists, some are Christ followers, some are Satanists or whatever, but for lack of a better term, um, regarding our Christ-centric worldview that we all four share here, um, a lot of times in Christian media, whether it's in books or movies or music, sometimes things can be painted all rosy when in fact life has hardships. In fact, Yeshua said, "In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world." But we are assured that there's going to be trouble. And the Bible's full of all kinds of trouble and tumultuous things. And we were discussing, John and Tim and myself, that the Bible, I consider it to be an R-rated book. There are some deep and dark and disturbing things that happen. And, enough of that. But where I'm going with this is, you stated about this album, it's about being human. And you said, my debut album, in the process of, breathes themes of solace to my fellow humans navigating grief, depression, or deconstruction while still reaching toward hope. From the song Another World, I'm going to quote some lyrics here, and I applaud these lyrics.
Thank you.
Just keep my eyes closed. I don't want to wake, because everywhere I look, the world is full of hate. How long will this go on? Like a broken record playing the same damn song. And Tom, a lot of Christian media in the past, if it offers something, if it paints a picture of hardship, then here comes the fudge cakes and fiddlesticks. It's rather Amish, it's not realistic, is what I'm trying to say. We as Christians hurt, we get mad, we get frustrated, we are deeply pained with sorrow. Dare I say, we cuss. Things happen. We're not in the right frame of mind at times. There's a simple word in here, and I applaud your gutsy move. You are an artist, and you are also a Christian. You paint a picture with emphasis by one word in here. And so I would just like to get your take on the lyric, which again, I
Why did I say that, right?
Why did you say it? Yes, give us the context. Explain to our viewers who might not understand, what are you talking about here, brother?
The amount of hate, you don't have to go very far. Social media is just full of it. You go on Facebook or anywhere else, and there are just people that just hate everybody that's not just like them. And I mean, just seething hate. And I looked at that hate as being, if that hate is a song that's playing over and over, that's a damned song. That song is going to go away in the end.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, the song of hate has a limited lifespan. And that's basically why I said it that way. And, for some people that might be a little more prudish, maybe they'll say, you didn't need to say it that way. But yeah, I did. I don't work in the Christian industry. I don't, the majority of my friends are not Christians. Um, and I don't feel a need to try to placate to, you know, um, the small uh, group of people that want me to say everything exactly the way they want it to be said. And but I wanted to get that point across that I was quite angry about the way things are, and it upsets me because I'll even see friends online just saying really hurtful and mean things. I was like, man, I've had also people that say, why can't people just get along? Why can't there be more love in the world? And then in the next breath, they say something horrible about somebody else. And it's like, well, that's why, because we're all completely flawed. And so anyway, that's why I wrote it in that way. Sorry if I'm too passionate.
No. I totally get it. In the case in point, what I was trying to convey, the Bible is very explicit with things that happen. And I just appreciated you putting it in a very real way, of the way things really are. All of us as Christians, I mean, expression comes forth. I wonder, Tom, would any Christian get, if anyone were offended, and none of us here are, but if anyone were offended, all that word means is condemned. Would they be offended if you would have put condemned? By the same token, as an artistic statement, would it have the same punch if you would have put condemned?
I didn't feel it would.
Exactly. That's my point. I appreciate it.
I was asked by a few people. They said change the word. I'm like, no, it stays.
Well, I totally get it. I totally appreciate it because it's real, it's honest, it's truthful. Let me ask you this, Tom, while you and I were connecting, because we're swimming in some deep, dark waters here. You're you're reaching for hope too. That element is in there as well. But truthfully speaking, some deep, dark waters. And Tom, while you and I were connecting at one point and preparing for this interview, you mentioned to me, you said someone once said that great pain produces great art, and that this album was written out of loss and sadness. And I know there are people who feel that too. My question, Tom, now we always have that proverbial pass button on the table. You were being a little more personable with me there. Do you wish to convey anything a little more deeply about some personal experience with this, or is that something that you would simply wish for the album to speak for itself?
Probably the album speak for itself. In some ways, I was trying to think of this today, actually, that I want to be, in my lyrics, I want to be very detailed in the emotion, but somewhat vague in the specifics.
Mm-hmm.
Because to say, oh, that song's about XYZ, now that people know it's about XYZ, they say, it can't relate to my life anymore. And it's really about that emotion, because there's certain emotions of certain things that are, a loss. It could have been a loved one, it could have been a child, could have been a job, could have been a dream. It could be anything that you lost. And I don't want to really say specifically what, the series of losses I went through that that brought me to that point. I'd rather people just find their own loss in it and be comforted by somebody else grieving.
Sure. you mentioned, Tom, you also stated about the album, you said, while still reaching toward hope, uh, in spite of navigating grief, depression, or deconstruction, you were still reaching toward hope. Some of your other lyrics here, in another world, you stated, the Son of Man walked among us. The Son of Man will return. I'm waiting for another world. I'm dreaming of another world. So promise me another world. Thomas, what is hope?
Well, the ultimate hope is Christ's return. Um, but on a more personal level, the hope is that Christ would bring healing within my life and healing within other people's lives, emotional, physical. Um, that's kind of a theme um, throughout the record. Another world was. I know some people might hear the last line, so promise me another world, and think, well, he did promise another world. So why are you asking that? Well, why did John the Baptist, when he was in, or John the Baptizer, when he was in prison, waiting to be killed, why did he write and say, "Are you who we're expecting, or should I be expecting another? Are you who are you the Christ?" You know, there's doubt within the greatest of all saints. There's still that little tiny bit of doubt that we're trying to get through, you know. And what was it, a centurion that I do believe, help me with my unbelief.
Oh, yes.
Mm.
And and so that song is, you know, like, yes, I believe that ultimately Christ will return and the world will be set right, finally. But we aren't there yet, and we're still going through a lot of tribulation. And I want to be reminded of that hope. That's I want to be reminded of that other world that's coming, and not just in the spiritual realm or even in the Christian realm, but I want a different, as just a human being, I want a different world. I want a different life than the one I have. I want something to change. And so I hope people can take away from that, just, you know, that there is some hope in there.
Is that part of why you're undoubting Thomas as who you aspire to be?
Exactly. It's not that I don't doubt. Some people say, "Oh, undoubting Thomas. Oh, you're not like doubting Thomas. You're the undoubting Thomas." No, 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 no. I am. It's in the process of undoubting Thomas. I'm Thomas who's trying not to doubt. So
Mm.
it's kind of a verb, I guess.
I like that.
Just want to make mention, Tom, I'm a big believer. I can't say enough about the quality of the music that you laid down in here. And kudos to your drummer as well. And I know Heather Humphrey assisted with backing vocals. Great music. I'm a firm believer that great music necessitates great packaging because, ironically speaking, sometimes the very first introduction we have to an album, to a work of art, is it's the cover, it's the packaging, it's a visual experience first before we get to the audible. I just want to say kudos to Scott Waters. I really feel like he did a great job, and the packaging, it matches the contents within in quality, and in the visual presentation. Again, it's about navigating through dark waters, deep waters. That's what we got going on here. So
Scott did an amazing job with it. We had a phone conversation and countless emails back and forth trying out ideas, and because he wanted to know what I was thinking, so I'd send him, here's kind of what I was thinking. But I said, I can't do what I'm seeing in my brain. I just can't pull that off. I don't have the skill set, but I know you do. And so he'd start sending me some stuff, and uh, it wasn't very long before he had something that was really close to what the final is, and I was putting it all together. He does a phenomenal job, doesn't he? It's just great. It's beautiful. the color scheme that's through it, the blues and greens, is just it portrays that dark waters thing just perfectly.
Indeed it does. Indeed it does. And Tom, will there be more from Undoubting Thomas or Damascus?
Damascus, probably not. I don't foresee doing anything more, as the band is splintered and everybody's gone kind of their own ways. Undoubting Thomas, I really hope so. I hope there's enough interest in this album that it would tell me that, all right, there is an audience there. There could be a potential fan base, or more importantly, there's enough people that resonate with it that it's worth doing something more. I've already had a couple things running through my brain already. I'd like to bask in the glory of having one done right now, but I would love to have a reason to do more. And I know Pat, the drummer, he's told me multiple times, he's like, when are you going to take this stuff and go do some shows? I'm like, well, we have to build up enough of a demand for it. And when the demand is there, I'd love to do something. It's challenging music though, and then it'd be difficult to find people that could just pull it off and do what I'd want to do with it. So, but who knows? I'm leaving that completely open because, before making connection with John early last year, I would have never thought any of this was going to happen ever again. So I have eternal thanks to John, and I'm leaving the door open to wherever God leads.
I would like to ask about The Mirror, the song. What makes a man a monster now?
I think in my own life, and maybe in yours, sometimes you do things, you act a certain way, you react a certain way, and you go back and you think about it, you go, that was so unlike what I want to be. I don't want to be that way. And it's that internal struggle. And the Bible's clear about that. Paul went through that. Why am I doing these things that I don't even want to do?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what that's about. And there's a Bible passage about looking in a mirror and seeing ourselves, dimly, as if in a mirror, which mirrors weren't really great back then. But then as soon as you look away, you don't even remember who you are. But I think the Word of God shows us who we really are. And in some cases, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to eventually come to the conclusion that I'm a pretty messed up individual, and I need some saving. I need redemption because I've kind of messed up my life. And that's kind of where The Mirror was all about. And that's, it not really uplifting in that the last words in The Mirror are, everything's lost. All you thought you were is lost when you finally understand who you really are. You just like take up your cross and follow me kind of thing, that all the things that I was and all the things that I hoped for, they don't amount to anything in light of following Jesus. And so it's kind of that sentiment, I guess.
We have to recognize we're broken people first before we can recognize the need for a savior, right?
I absolutely. And Um, I work in the entertainment field, and just like anywhere else, there's a lot of messed up people, a lot of people that are confused. They don't really understand who they are. Um, and I'm not afraid of those people. I'm not afraid of those questions. And I love them. And um, the people that scare me are the good people. Those good people really scare me because they aren't seeing what God sees. They're seeing their comparison against somebody else, and that's not accurate at all.
Yeah. Well put.
Lost in my thoughts, revealed who I am. The prodigal son, far from home, where are you, God? Redeem me, Lord, make me whole.
Tom, who turns a monster to a man? And it's interesting the who and why not what?
The what is circumstances. Our circumstances could turn us into monsters. But there's only, have you ever, in your own life, have you seen people that guy is never going to change? But through the grace of God, some people that I've wrote off, including myself, uh, when God gets involved, all things can happen, and people can change. And I mean, really, really change. Somebody that you thought, like, this guy is just thoroughly messed up, and they're on a spiral, and they're just going to die. And then the next thing you know, that, wow, they're like living in the light at this point as best they can, and their life has turned around. They're no longer this monster; they're now a man. And so, obviously, the answer is Jesus. So, if you're filling in your little quiz, the answer for D, it's Jesus. So,
And I wasn't, taking a quiz, but Tom, I just found that single word, I've just found it so interesting because it's pivotal. You asked what makes a man a monster now? And then I just found it so interesting that the question was who turns a monster to a man? And of course, I know the answer, but the craftsmanship of your lyrics, I just found that one difference so pivotal. And I'm like, it's the little things that can say a lot. And that's what I'm trying to say. I was like, right on, Tom, and Tom, if you could make a brief statement to leave a lasting impression with your friends and fans who have followed you from Damascus and now are enjoying Undoubting Thomas, what would you wish to say to them?
I'd say thanks for following what I've been doing. I pray that something I've done has had a positive impact on you. But just know that I'm a flawed human being, very flawed, and I'm just like you, no better. Um, there's no one good. So that's what I'd want people to understand, that, you know, even though sometimes my music might be, marketed as Christian rock or Christian prog or Christian whatever, I'm just like you, who may be an atheist. I have problems. I've made mistakes. Um, I'm in constant need of redemption in my life, and I'm hoping that through some of that somebody can dive in deep where they're sinking, and maybe they can read the lyrics, listen to the music, and maybe it might help them to see that, all right, there is a hand reaching out. There's a hand reaching while you're dying. And that's kind of what the album's about. There's just this bit of hope that if you look for it, it's there.
Friends, you can go online to youtube.com at Undoubting Thomas 1961, undoubtingthomas.com for the Undoubting Thomas website, Damascus.band for the Damascus band website, and then shadowfields.com, which is Tom's Americana group with Heather Humphrey and additional musicians. And so I'll post those across the board, and the links will be in the description below. Before we go to Message from Home, our scripture closeout, John DeLaurentis, we have yet to hear from you. What would you wish to say or ask, buddy?
I'm just very thankful that God used me as an instrument for all this, for the initial contact. I mean, because I shared this with Tom already, that, the Damascus cassettes I've been listening to for years. And I have those cassettes. I listen to them. I love them because I've always been a really big prog rock fan. So when I got into the position of being the copy editor for these labels, that's when I got the idea, well, you know what? It would be great to have those on CD, to have them officially released. And then it blessed me not only to see it happen, but that Tom also had that fifth album, that Bill was open to that as well. And that we got a fifth album of Damascus material, in there as well. And then the Undoubting Thomas, I had checked out his 2 tracks on the YouTube, the ones I think you recorded in 2019, the Not Every Voice and The Serpent, and loved them. And I'm like, I wonder if he would be interested. Well, first I talked to Bill about it, like if he came up with this, if he expanded the Untitled Thomas, he came up and went back revisiting his prog rock roots, would you be interested? And Bill was very open to that as well, So so it's blessed me, and then seeing it in reality and seeing what Tom came up with, I'm like blown away by it, So I'm just thankful to God that he was able to use me, from that initial, blessing of the music to see it get to this point where that music came out of Tom's head and now people can enjoy it and listen to it. So I'm thankful for that.
John, you have blessed my life incredibly. So just thank you.
You're most welcome. The feeling is mutual. It's been a blessing both ways. So, and I do hope that there's more Undoubting Thomas albums in the future too.
As do I. Brothers helping brothers and uplifting one another, iron sharpening iron. Got to say really quick before we hit Message from Home. Tom, your 2 Undoubting Thomas songs that John was referring to, plus your excellent Good Christian Men Rejoice that you did. I want you to know, for the past few years on Area 312 Vodcast, we've done a group get together and we do a Christmas themed fellowship, if you will. I had already put the score in there to the little audio snippets at like the last quarter. I heard this Bill Bafford put out Good Christian Men Rejoice. And I'm like, this is amazing. I fell in love with your rendition of it. I had to go back and include that in there. Okay, so here's the deal. If Undoubting Thomas releases another album, I am praying that you will put those 2 online only songs and Good Christian Men Rejoice as bonus tracks, on a release. I would hate for those to be online only. I would love to have those in physical media form. I'm just giving props to your music, good sir. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Friends, as you know, at the end of every episode, we always have our message from home. That's equivocating a work that the artist has done, album title, something of that nature with some scripture. And, Tom, in the song Another World, it talks about all kinds of realistic trouble that we have, and it also points us toward the true hope that is coming, and that's actually here now as well through Yeshua, Jesus the Christ. I couldn't help but be reminded when I heard of this, or when I listened to the song and heard it, John 14, 1 through 6, it says this. Yeshua is saying, do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I'm going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Yeshua answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. And what blows me away about that is, Thomas was having doubt, and Yeshua was telling him, I am God. I am God in the flesh. I am the visible image of the invisible God, as the Bible says elsewhere. And here is God, God in the flesh in Yeshua, looking at Thomas directly in the face and saying, I've got you, and I am the way, just keep rooted in me. And that blesses me because it talks about, do not let your hearts be troubled, because yes, we're going through trouble, but there's that gentle assurance from God himself in the flesh, assuring one of his own, hey, I've got you. And I just, through your song, Another World, and it talking about troubled Tom, but the very real hope in the Lord, it just reminded me of that verse of scripture. And I'm thankful that at the end of the day, the Lord has us, and he's so gentle with us and understanding. Thank you, Tom, for helping me keep my focus through your wonderful music. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you so much.
Well, friends, I want to say thank you, John, and thank you, Tim, and we will wave goodbye to our friends out there, but just stick around for one more moment, Tom. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Blessings.
I'm waiting for another world. I'm dreaming of another world. So promise me another world.
As a fan of prog rock, what I appreciate about in the process of is that it avoids the I gotta I have taken the Benadryl, guys. I mowed my yard yesterday. I already told Tim, I said, man, okay, I can't get it out. Too many beats. Here we go. Take two.